Okay, so on this problem of the day, it says, is each number an actual solution, an extraneous solution, or neither to the following equation? So they want to know, is 1 an actual solution, an extraneous solution, or neither? Same thing for 4, 2, and 3. Now the only way to know is to take this equation and solve it. You can't just start plugging these numbers in. Okay? So we're going to take this equation right here and solve it. So the first step in solving it will be to add x to both sides. So when I do that, I have the square root of negative 3x plus 10 equals x minus 4. Now, in order for me to get rid of this square root right here, I need to square both sides. So I'm going to square the left, and I'm going to square the right. And when I do that, I end up with negative 3x plus 10 equals, now, the reason why it's just negative 3x plus 10 is because when you square a square root, the root and the squared go away. Now, x minus 4 squared does not mean x squared plus 16. It does not mean that. It also doesn't mean x squared minus 16. When you do x minus 4 squared, you're doing x minus 4 times x minus 4, like that. So now I'm going to distribute. I'm going to take this x and multiply it by both terms in the binomial. And I'm going to take this negative 4 and multiply it by both terms in the binomial. And so I have negative 3x plus 10 equals x squared minus 4x minus 4x plus 16. Because x times x was x squared, and x times negative 4 is negative 4x, and negative 4 times x is negative 4x, and negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. And now I need to get all of the terms on the same side of the equal sign. So I'm going to take this negative 3x and this positive 10, and I'm going to move them over. To move them over, I got to do the opposite of what's happening. So I need to add 3x to both sides like this. And I need to subtract 10 from both sides like this. And so I have 0 equals x squared and negative 4x and negative 4x and positive 3x gives me negative 5x. And 6 and negative 10 is positive 6. So now what I have right here is I have a quadratic equation. And the numbers are small enough and there's no leading coefficient. Instead of complete the square or quadratic formula, let's just try to factor it. It may not factor, okay? So let's factor this quadratic equation. And so I have 0 equals, and I'm going to try to factor it into two sets of what? And I'm going to list my factors of 6. 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. Now, I could use either of these and my result be negative 5. Watch, I could say negative 6 plus 1 and that gives me negative 5. And I could do negative 2 plus negative 3 and that also gives me negative 5. Right? But let me ask you this. What is negative 6 times 1? It's negative 6, but I need it to be what? And then negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6, isn't it? So I'm going to write these in. I'm going to use this one because it's the only one that adds to be negative 5 and multiplies to be positive 6. So I'll say x minus 2 and x plus 3. Now in order for me to solve this from here, I got to take x minus 2 and set it equal to 0 and solve. And I have to take x plus 3 and set it equal to 0 and solve. So I have x minus 2 equals 0. And x plus 3 equals 0. And when I solve them, I'll add 2 to both sides. And so x equals 2. I'll also subtract 3 from both sides. So x equals negative 3. Now, here's what you need to understand. When you're solving a radical equation, which is what this is, sometimes you'll get solutions that don't work. And those are called extraneous. Oh, you're right. Yeah, I meant to write x minus 3 here. So in this, it should have been x minus 3 equals 0. So then I add 3 to both sides, so x equals 2. Sorry about that. X equals 3. So I've got, my two answers are 2 and 3. Now, like I said, when you're solving radical equations, which is what this is, sometimes the solutions you get don't work. Those are called extraneous. Okay? But now we got 2 and we got 3, but we did not get 1 or 4, so 1 and 4 would be under the neither. And now what we need to do is we need to test 2 and 3. Okay? To test it, what you do is you take 2 and you put it in for x right here and right here, and when you evaluate the entire left side, it has to equal what? Negative 4. So let's put 2 in. Let's just do it in our head. So if I were to put 2 in right here, 2 times negative 3 is what? Negative 6. And negative 6 plus 10 is 4. What's the square root of 4? 2. Now what did we put in for x to start with? 2. So what's 2 minus 2?
0.
So does 0 equal negative 4?
No.
So what is 2? Extraneous. Now let's plug 3 in for x right here and right here. So we're putting a 3 right there, aren't we? And we're putting a 3 right there as well. So negative 3 times 3 is negative 9, plus 10 is 1, and the square root of 1 is 1. Square root of 1 is 1. Minus 3 is negative 2, isn't it? But we need it to equal what?
Negative 4.
So that also is extraneous.